Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are joining our Northern Diamond Squares. So when you're ready to sew together your squares, it's easiest now if you do your ends square by square, just leaving the one tail left that you're going to sew it together with. So try to get that done. If not, not the end of the world, but it's a lot easier to do on small bits like this than wrangling an entire blanket later. So I have these ones ready to go. And also, if you have forgotten to make a long tail, this one I cut off. So just make like a stack of ones with short tails and then ones with long tails. So get one with a short tail. We're not going to use this tail at all. So that's a good way to get rid of them. Use them up. And also get your second one ready with a proper tail. Go ahead and thread your needle. I just loop the yarn over top of my needle and pinch it with my thumb and finger. That makes this little sliver of yarn, and I just poke that straight into the center of my needle. Like that. And we're going to just be sewing this one seam together. We're going to make one long stripe. So we're going to start by getting this tail over to the corner. You can see how it's over here right now. We don't want it there. We want it straight into this corner. So I'm just going to loop it over once into the center chain, just so it's over starting right from the edge. Now finding the corresponding stitch from the one on top, it'll be this one right here, just the center of that corner. I just want to go into the back loop. So down into the back loop, and that should match them up nicely. And now if you turn it this way, it's kind of, this is how I do it, but you can do it any which way you're comfortable. So now back loops. Remember, just pick a back loop from where you started. Just go in somewhere. Get that a bit snug. So I've gone into this loop. I'll go into the center and into that back loop. And into the next one on this other side, this little guy down here. And you can see why I like this bent tip needle, because you can just poke it straight down. You want to make sure you're going around your full strand of yarn. You don't want to be splitting your yarn when you're doing your stitching. You also don't need to be pulling really tight yet. We'll snug it down when we get a little bit ahead, but just for now, we just want to be lining them up. So into the middle and back loop of one square, and into the middle back loop of the opposite square. And we're just going to work our way all the way up this seam. And see, I'm not worrying about my tension, just 1, 1, 1. Making sure you get just into that back loop. When you have a little bit done, an inch or two, you can kind of snug it down a little bit. So just give it a little bit of a tug. You don't want it to be pulling so that this edge goes in, but you want it to be nice and firm and pulled together. So just like that. Now we'll go a little bit farther along, making sure you go into each back loop. Always from the center. When you get to the middle where you did your drop down stitch, make sure that those are lined up. You want to go into one and then go into the other. That's important. Even if you're fudging on either side of that, go ahead and fudge, because you really need those to just line up. We can give that a pull again just to Shrink it down. We want them nice and close together, not pinching, but not loose, like that. You can see how it's really nice and kind of tight now. It also lays super flat. So that is why I really like joining this way. So we'll just keep going to the end. So the center back loops of both chains, or the center chain back loops on both edges, like that. And I'll just go back through the one on the other side. That's going to be the only extra stitch I'm doing. And I'm just going to leave my tail now. So now I'll take my needle out. I'm just going to leave it like this for now. When I come back and they're all joined, I will be sewing this together. There might be another strand nearby where we can do a little knot and then sew it in. We'll see how it goes. But I'm just going to leave this ready to go if I need it in the future. So now keep going, adding one seam of all of your squares to go down the length of your blanket, and then we will come back and join a square to here. When you've made your one strip the length you'd like your blanket to be, we are ready to join our second row, or start joining our second row. So we're going to do that almost the same way. So get your next square and just whip the yarn over into the center, the back loop of the center chain. You want to make sure it's coming out straight from the center of that corner. You also want to find the center back loop of the corner above the square you're joining to. And I do always keep what I'm joining above me and what I'm joining closest to me, just so I keep track of what I'm doing. So just bring that through the back loop. And now turn everything so it's the same way we were joining before. And sew up this side just into the back loops. There is that little knot here, so I just kind of find something. It won't be the exact back loop, but just some sort of strip of yarn, piece of yarn to hold it down while we start joining. Now we can do it one to one, from one square to the next square, just into the back loop, from the center going down, and from the center going down on the other side. So keep doing that all the way up. I'll meet you when we get up here. So keep working your way up to the corner, just one to one, until you run out of stitches. So this will be the corner of one side, and this is the corner of the other side. So that is matching up. Now this is when you snug down your row. Give your yarn a nice tug, just so it's nice and flat all the way through. And now you also want to join to this. You want to go kitty corner. So you also want to join into the back loop of the opposite corner. Not just these two that are touching side by side, but you also want to jump to this next guy. So we're going to go into that loop and pull all of that together. See how that joins everything up? And we'll do it again when we get to this side. So that'll be a nice closed join. So that loop, and then I'm just going to go back in there. So make sure you have pulled your seam nice and flat. So now you can loop back into the square you're joining, that back loop from the square we're joining. And just bring your needle through to make a little bit of a knot. Not an actual knot, but just a little placement holder. You don't have to shrink it down too much. You don't want a hard knot, but you want it to you do want it to stay put. So finished with that one. Now we are ready to join our next square to this area right here. So get your next square ready. We're going to thread the yarn onto our needle and get our yarn into the corner, the back loop of our corner. Just a little hop over into the actual corner of our square. And we're going to start joining here. So turn everything so we can get rid of our other tail. There. Now on this square, we want to find that center back loop. I think it's this guy here. Just in the middle and the back loop only. So go down into that. just to connect them together. Now I'll turn them so we can just so we can sew them together going all the way up. So I'm just gonna go straight. Oh, it's gonna start falling off my desk. So now back loops. Remember, just pick a back loop from where you started. Just go in somewhere. Get that a bit snug. And now back loop to back loop. Working up this seam. And remember to line up these two stitches here. You want to make sure these guys are one after the other. Those two are important, the rest not so much. So keep going all the way up here and I'll meet you when you get to this corner. All right, that's about as close as I can get to my corner without having to really look and see what I'm doing. So now I'm going to shrink down that seam, just get out some extra yarn, just so it's nice and smooth and flat. And of course those are lining up. And keep going. I can go into this one also, and this one also. So now I have to join this square that I'm joining, kitty corner, to this opposite square, or the opposite corner. So look in there to see where that back loop is. I think it's this one right here. So I'm going to go straight into that one. Turn my work a little bit. And go into the next one from this square I'm working on. And give it a little tug. You want to shrink, you can't shrink it down too much when you get farther ahead because it goes around the corner. So just shrink it down while you're here. And then work along this side, one back loop to the next back loop. And don't worry exactly about what it looks like right now. It's going to look weird until you get farther away. So don't totally worry about it. Just do your best. Corners are always weird. Like that. Shrink it down before you get too far. Okay. So that is our seam so far. Keep going, joining this together, and I'll meet you when you get over here. So look on the opposite, we're joining these two together, opposite sides, points touching. So find that center back loop and stitch straight into there and down into the one we're joining. We just want that to be nice and tight. We can go through again if we feel like it. Make sure you have made it nice and flat before you do any sort of loose knot. I don't want a tight knot, I just want like a little placeholder, just so it doesn't go wild while I'm doing something else. So keep going, add your next square here until this row is finished, and then come back and start your third row here, and just keep going until all your squares are joined. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell beside that so you don't miss out on any of the fun. We do tutorials every week, as well as a live chat on Fridays, podcasts on Wednesdays, and all sorts of yarny fun in between. Love to have you join us. If you'd like to show me pictures of your Northern Diamond squares or what you are working on, you can tag me on Instagram at Secret Yarnery, or also join our Facebook group, the Secret Yarnery Crochet Community. I'd love to see what you're working on. So have a super great day and stay hooked.